Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 397. And right away getting messages. Forgot to turn my phone off. There we go. All right. It has been an interesting day. So I actually got started on, according to the clock, I think it's on time. So we should be good there. Definitely some tasty network cables. I have been working on my, got pictures here. We'll pull up I did post this already. It's kind of a work in progress. I know some people said it wasn't messy, and I'm like, okay, it's not real messy. It's kind of messy, but yes, I've been updating and building a third lab. This is lab 3. So we have a lab in Southgate. That's where a lot of the original studio was at our Southgate office. Even after the merger, we still have our Southgate office. So there's still a lab there. And then we have a lab. Technically, we kind of have 2 labs in one building at CNWR in our Toledo office. So I also just needed something for all the little things that I'm testing that are getting too scattered around that I wanted here. So I am updating all of the things. Matter of fact, I need, I have one. And when I do some more swapping around, once I get this tall rack done, I'll probably replace the small rack with a tall one as well. Or I'll move that rack onto the other side because it doesn't need to be touched. I want 2 full height racks because I have that many little things that all need to be on shelves because I hate it when it's on the floor. It looks better now. This is what it looked like at that moment. I think I have another picture of it. It's much closer now to being complete. Let's see. Yeah, this picture. So looks a little better now. Things are getting a little bit more organized. At one time I ran out of spots and I had to plug this extension in just to get things plugged in, but almost I got to take that. The reason it's not unplugged right now is because that is, and I got to maybe do a map of this. How I set up labs is slightly more complicated maybe than the average person. I don't know, average, but it's once you understand how all the networking works, and this is a great way to understand it, you start creating all these different spots in your network and lots of VLANs. And by the way, it's not all VLANs on just like UniFi switches. There's other switches in the mix here, such as this Alta Labs one that I have at the top here. I'm going to be doing some more videos about Alta. So I've been testing out their stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to give them a fair shot on there. But so yeah, definitely. The lab has gotten much bigger at home than it was before. Home is also my studio, by the way. Let's see. Happy Puppy just fetched his favorite toy. Yes, that is definitely me. Hello from home. I love seeing a Cybermat Lee in here. Awesome. I got to Cybermat Lee, Jason Slagle, and a little bit of John Hammond mixed in there. We got a project we're all working on together, and once it's all done, it's going to be some fun content about hacking and security in the IT MSP space. So definitely looking forward to when we finish that. It's been a lot of fun. It's been insightful. It's just interesting. I can't wait to dive deeper into it. You've probably seen, if you follow us on LinkedIn, we've talked about it called the hackening. It's not the results aren't in yet, but it's stuff that we are working on. So it's not the project we're working on isn't secret. The results are still secret to us because we're still working on them. What's a best way to access TrueNAS from another VLAN the few times I need it? I mean, via the web interface. I don't understand the question exactly. Oh, UniFi did publish some speeds. That's interesting. All right. Well, that'll save me some speed testing. I am all for that. I think that's pretty cool. It's not that loud. I don't know where the decibels are. I'm going to hold the decibel meter up to it, but it's really not that loud. So the 8300 so far, the testing's going really well with it, but I wouldn't call it loud. It's not quiet either. It's not a silent operation. There are 8200 perfectly silent, 8300 not at all. A quick update though. I will be at GurCon on September 26th and 27th. So that's coming up. That's about a month away. Wild West Hacking Fest. That's where we're going to be presenting some of the hacking stuff that I'll be doing with Matt Lee and John Hammond and Jason Slagle. That's all going to be happening on October of 2024, October 9th through 11th. And I'll be at IT Nation Connect November 6th through 8th of 2024. I believe at least one of the talks I'm doing was accepted. So hopefully the other one will is I pinged people today to see if they'll accept my other talk I have submitted there. It's a talk that I don't know if it would play well on my channel. Some of the talks are okay to put on my channel because they're a fit for you, the audience. Other talks may not be a fit for you, the audience. But let's jump right into the IP address that I got to remember now. What is it? Is it 118? Yeah, there we go. But the Netgate 8300. Now, the review's not finished yet. I was going to finish it today, but I got really into testing a lot of the different things that people are going to ask about, and especially like not just speed testing. I did that and that worked fine, but I was testing all the different modules in it because I don't think I spent enough time on some of the other ones testing SFP modules. I generally don't have a problem with them and they seem to work, but I went through and tested fiber modules and a variety of DAC modules from fs.com, from Cable Matter. I think it's Cable Matters. I'll make a list of them that I tested. That way people know which ones work. And I didn't find any of them that didn't work. Matter of fact, right now it has the UniFi ones in it, and those work fine too. So I haven't had any issues at all with all the different models. This is kind of what goes on behind the scenes for the testing. Because I know not everyone has, a lot of people want to buy a product and plug it in. That's an ideal situation. Matter of fact, many times when I'm watching YouTube videos unrelated to tech, it's for a product I may want to buy that I just want to work. I may not be an expert in the field by which that person is an expert in. So I'm watching them for the value they provide on there. You know, I'll use an easy example. I've been looking at a lot of stuff for my camper. I don't want to guess what works with my camper and my hookups. I would like someone to tell me what to buy that works. So I try to kind of perspective myself that same way. I want to offer you a very detailed review of the things that kind of matter, because the specs are the specs. That's one part of it. It's not just the specs though. You want to know, well, I happen to have these random SFP and fiber adapters. Do I have to purchase other ones when I embark upon this project of replacing my firewall? You know, those are important things. And if you look, and let me zoom in here, we have our standard, you know, transceiver, our twin axe one, and we have our fiber one. I've mixed and matched them and things like that, and it works fine. So those are important things to know about. Are we able to set up OpenVPN inside of pfSense using a dynamic public IP? Well, yes. One of the features that you have with pfSense is the ability to do, and I've not used it in forever. Is it in here or do I have to add it? I can't remember if it's an add-on or not. Dynamic DNS, it's built in. But you have the ability to set up a dynamic DNS service. They have a lot of them in here. So if you have Azure DNS, Cloudflare, DNS Simple, DigitalOcean, there's a pretty good list in here of ZoneEdit. ZoneEdit is still around. I used to use ZoneEdit forever ago. Anyways, you have a pretty good list in here. You can set these up so if your IP address changes, you can have a constant URL to reference for something like OpenVPN. So yes, you can use a dynamic IP address. Something worth noting though, I don't pay for a static address at my studio because I don't need to, but my IP address doesn't ever change either. Now, I'm not guaranteed to always have this IP address, obviously, because I'm not paying for it. But generally speaking, companies don't change their IPs often if you leave things on. So it's not as huge of a big deal. At least I don't think so. In the Omada ecosystem, am I able to have a client on 2 separate VLANs? Probably. I as long as you write the firewall rules right with the Omada stuff, I mean, it does have separation for things like that. So I think that should work. And I do have a second channel, so I could always put that on my business technicalities channel. Maybe that's where I should put that, because the talks I'm doing at IT Nation Secure are going to be more business oriented, even though they're technology. They're how technology may apply to business from an MSP use case. Do you think pfSense is too basic in most cases in the world of next gen firewalls? Not really. This is one of the reasons I did that video recently on intrusion detection systems, how people really get excited about them, but no one can really point to their efficacy. It's because they are so blinded unless you're doing full inspection. And full inspection comes with its own set of headaches that we just don't do that as much. The easier way to do this is load endpoint security on there and not have to deal with a bunch of certificates at the firewall level. Yeah, you generally, when you change your firewall, or change the MAC address of your WAN on the firewall, because you can actually do it in pfSense, for example, you can do MAC spoofing. If you spoof your MAC address, you'll get a new IP. Some people do that because they want to rotate what IP they're coming from, and that's perfectly fine. Is it possible to have two different tailnets in pfSense? And the answer there, I'm pretty sure, is no, because I don't think there's any way for you to add two. I'll look at mine real quick, but to my knowledge, they still don't have any way to have two in there. You only get to have one activation. So let me look at mine real quick here. Yep. Under authentication, there's not a spot for a second key. There's only a key I can put in there. There's not a second key I can put in there. So that rules that one out. Can you give some spoilers with the UniFi EFG? It's kind of not really a spoiler. I didn't find anything more out about it really than what you've seen Cody do on there. I am going to reach out to UniFi because I do have a couple questions that I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding it. But so far, it appears to be like all or nothing when it comes to the SSL inspection, which is kind of a pain. But I mean, you do it on a per network basis, but that means everything on that network gets SSL, and figuring out how to do the exclusions and things like that is going to be interesting on it. So I got to figure out how they're doing it because it's all very new, and so it's going to take some more playing around with before I would say it needs to be implemented. Now, from a hardware standpoint, it's well built. I'll share this here. Maybe UniFi will hear it. This was an accident. It survived. I did something probably no other person testing it did. It survived a drop test. It wasn't an intentional drop test, but there was a unscheduled drop test of the UniFi EFG. It's got a little dent in the corner now, but it works. So for anyone wondering, unfortunately, it's not on camera, and I don't plan on doing it again. So that happened. It works fine though. It's a little marked. So there's some inside information. I don't know if that'll make it to the final review or not. On the ISP side, if we bounce the session servers or do hard upgrades, and you're likely going to have different IPs, but yes, being on is the key, but not always guaranteed. Yeah, for switching IP addresses, you're absolutely right. What do you think of running services on your network like Kubernetes? Does it make sense to host a DNS server from Kubernetes or host on bare metal? It's up to you. I don't need Kubernetes. This is the problem I have where people try to start with Kubernetes, and that's fine, but why? Think about your why before you go down the deep end. Are you someone who is got the time to learn how some of that works? And there's different levels of understanding. Some people will copy and paste code and go, hey, look, it magics. And I'm like, that's wonderful, except the problem you run into is when it doesn't, or when there's an update that breaks things and everything's very hard down. I've had people tell me that, Tom, you're just talking about Docker. You really got to get with the program and, start doing Kubernetes. I'm like, why? I mean, Docker works. I don't need to build the product I'm using or the tools I'm using with Kubernetes. I don't need the extra complexity in my setup for what we're doing. Therefore, I don't do it. Now, granted, when you're someone the size of Google, Kubernetes makes a whole lot of sense. When you're the size of Reddit, who uses Kubernetes on the back end. And I bring Reddit up because they did a wonderful debrief of what happens when Kubernetes breaks during an update and takes down one of the largest top sites of the internet for, I think they were down for like 16 hours because Kubernetes upgrades can be hard. And that was an example of one. So it depends on the complexity. Do you need that level of complexity? For my DNS, I am perfectly content to have pfSense be a DNS in my labs because it works. When you are outside the labs and you're maybe running some production stuff with Active Directory, yeah, you may have some other DNS options in there. But I'm fine with pfSense as DNS. It makes a great DNS server. Never used PTRG, so I don't have an opinion on it. I just saw the tease that PF Sense Management is coming soon, plus members only. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it's a paid service, is what I'll assume. I don't think they're going to give you a free dashboard with PF Sense. I'm going to assume that there's possibly some type of like dashboard cost. I don't know. I don't know the pricing at all, if there's pricing or if it just comes free with your pfSense Plus. Maybe it comes free with pfSense Plus, but I would probably say, yeah, it's going to be pfSense Plus only. I don't think it's going to be a CE thing. I don't find that to be a huge deal because all we install at our clients is Netgate hardware 99.9% of the time. Maybe there's a few clients that don't have, they have some virtualized stuff, but yeah, for the most part, I don't really, I don't imagine it's going to be free, work with CE. Anyways, I'm about to start using IDS for practice. How do I set a rule to launch IP scans against someone who has Nmap on my network? Attacking, defending. Well, you'll get an alert. You don't, there's not only a rule to launch it, you get alerts when people scan. That was the example I gave in my IDS video. So you'll get alerts on the scan. It's up to you what you want to do with that information. Block them. That's usually the answer, is block people who scan you, which is perfectly fine. What hardware do you choose for a home firewall? Honestly, it depends on your budget. I like the Netgate hardware, but I completely sympathize. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm working on right now is ordering some cheap switches. I sympathize the fact that I get it. You may not have the money for a pfSense firewall. I recommend them. I'm thinking they're great. They work great for business. But if you're going, hey, my budget isn't there, I'm just not with, I don't have that money. And I completely understand if you want to use whatever hardware you have. So what I choose, because I have the money to purchase them, is Netgate hardware. What you can decide for yourself is if that's not within the realm of your budget, yeah, there's plenty of other options out there, and you can get by with, it doesn't really take much to run a firewall. So you can get by with a pretty basic piece of hardware. You can get by with a used computer that you may have had laying around. You can take one that runs Windows 7, even, something that's quite old, and still run full fast firewall services on there. So it comes down to wattage sometimes, because if you don't have the money for a modern piece of hardware, you'll realize that your older piece of hardware is lower cost up front, but higher cost over time in terms of heat and energy. But yeah, it'll run really on anything. So whatever your budget will allow. Netgate hardware is great. They still have the 2100s and 4200, so they work. If you have a Windows network, like you have a domain and everything else, Windows, if Active Directory is running on there and that you're using Active Directory for your network, you're going to want Windows to do the DHCP and DNS. You agree 100% that case deployments, the bottom line should always be, is the juice worth the squeeze? Yes. The only issue I have is we bought hardware and haven't upgraded to the Plus. The CE just works so well. Plus works fine. I don't really have an issue with any of them either. So, what's your take on network Security Toolkit OS. I haven't used it, so I don't really have a take on it. Do you recommend any 10 gig 5-port network switches that are fanless? 10 gig 5-port. Trying to think of who makes one like that, because I think UniFi. I actually had to look. I don't have any of these small ones from UniFi. I like the UniFi switches a lot. I think they're of good quality and hold up well. MikroTik makes some good ones. I don't know if they're fanless though. I don't know if this is fanless. Let me take a closer look. Do they have a close-up of it? I'll assume because it's got vents on it. Oh, it says fanless silent cooling right there. So not bad. 269, and it's got 8 10 gig ports on there. So it's more than 5, but maybe that'll work what you're looking for. Which version of your PF block are you running? Stable or beta? Stable. Yeah, I see other people recommending MikroTik as well. I haven't tested any of the more recent MikroTik stuff. I have some older stuff. It works. All right, I see more people confirming basically what it says on the screen here. Yes, it's a fanless one. You know, some of the earlier ARM ones, I like the 3100. It's discontinued, but the Netgate 3100 was nice before it was discontinued. I thought it was a good product. We sold a lot of them, and they were fine. You know, I don't have any complaints about the 3100s, but right now the Intel stuff has become so much less expensive. If we go to pull up Netgate's site. The only one left, and I mean, it's not bad, but it's not fast. This is pretty, if your needs fit within here, this is as cheap as you can get in here. Matter of fact, Steve Gibson, famous for Security Now, I believe he's still running his Netgate 1100. He likes this box. It's not real fancy, but it works. Then we have the 2100, which is not bad either at $349. This is still a nice little box. I can't remember. Yeah, this one ARM. Yep, this is still an ARM one. I thought, yeah, the only ones left that are they're still selling that are ARM are these two. It's a nice little box that gets the job done. I wouldn't see a need for the 128 gig one. The 8 gig storage one's fine. So yeah. Oh, what else we got here? Yeah, Patrick has done a few reviews of some of those cheap switches. And one of the ones I bought, let me pull it up here. I'm going to order some more of them because I want to talk about them as a lab device. Where did it go? If I had it that long? Huh. Sure, remember when I bought it now. It's not coming up when I search for switches. If I search for 10G. Nope. There we go. Found it. I'll get a share link here for everyone. I'm going to get a couple more of these devices because I'm impressed with, you got 2.5 gig and 10 gig ports and they're $45. And now it's not managed, but if you just need to connect a few devices, especially in your lab, you just need connectivity. It works. Like you just plug it in. If you were trying to build a storage backend that doesn't need managed, like storage is like, hey, I just want to connect a few devices to this. Awesome. For lab environments, I wouldn't put this in production at a client, but it's a convenient way to have 10 gig for $45. They have a couple variations of this. They have how many? 10, yeah, 5-port. That one's a little bit more expensive. The SFP caged ones are usually cheaper. How many of them have let me find the cheapest. I have a 16-port one, but $199 is pretty cheap. But I think the sweet spot for what people are probably looking for is like this here. The $45, you got a couple 10 gigs, you have 4 2.5 gigs, $45. Have a great day. Like, I'm surprised it works that well for $45. See, when did I buy? I've actually been using it ever since I bought it. I bought this in about almost a year ago now. So September of 2023. All right, let me catch up here with the comments. Let's see. What free software do you recommend to monitor Windows updates and patches for small network? I can't name any for that. I don't know any. There might be something out there. I'm unaware of it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying I don't use it. I don't really have. I mean, my studio computer is the only production computer I run that runs Windows, and I just let it self-update. And that's about it. So I don't really have any answer for that one there. Oh, you actually have one that has the managed version. How's the documentation on it, I wonder? That's probably an interesting question. Can you set up firewall rules for OpenVPN to allow or block IPs to some places you want? Yes. Follow my OpenVPN video and I talk about firewall rules in there. But yeah, you can. Matter of fact, the more detailed video I have, I didn't make a new one yet, but I have my older OpenVPN video for Radius server. It's not too much different. I made a new OpenVPN video to explain all the different ciphers better, but my older video, outside of lacking the cipher mentions because there's some new changes, is still valid. And the one where I talk about how to set up a Radius server is valid. The Radius server allows you to statically assign when users come in. They will get the same IP address each time. And by doing that, you can then put your own restrictions as to where they go if you feel the need to. So it's not crazy, but the basic features are there on the managed ones. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know if I trust them from a security standpoint. I talked years ago. One of my really oddly popular videos is a cheap managed switch that I had done a video on. And it was interesting because the video got popular because I showed how you could VLAN hop. And I think it was like a year or two later, they updated the firmware, so you can't. But I pointed out that you could force, no matter what VLAN settings you did, you could, at the time, the new firmware doesn't let you do this, you could always get to the management interface by just setting your IP to be that. It wasn't well designed, and I don't trust a lot of these to be well thought out. Can you add NordVPN, ProtonVPN, etc. to the OpenVPN firewall rules? Add a VPN gateway with an alias so that if you connect to OpenVPN, you are also connected to a VPN. It's probably not a great idea, but you could. What you're doing is you're looping it out, and then you would redirect it back out that gateway. So you establish like a privacy VPN as a gateway. Then you can open VPN to your firewall at home and then go back out. But the reason I wouldn't recommend that is because you're adding so much overhead. I did a video about buffer bloat that's really popular. People like to reduce the amount of buffer bloat. By the time you add 2 VPNs, now you've worsened your internet experience by quite a bit. So the double layering of VPNs isn't going to give you a better internet experience. Will it be more private? Well, not really, because you could have just gone from wherever you are directly to NordVPN. Why VPN to your house to go back out NordVPN or any of the privacy VPN services? So I won't think I'd recommend doing it. Can be done, yes. Should it be done? Probably not. Be a fun experiment in networking. The Linux distro I recommend is Pop! OS. That's been my favorite. I do want to try out their new Cosmic desktop, so I'm probably going to load a system with that. I've been using Pop! OS for years. It makes me happy. It gets the job done. It's well supported. Everything works, and I don't have headaches with it. Do I have recommendations for a 10 gig PCI 4.0 by 1 NIC? I usually go with the Intel ones because they work really well. I don't have much recommendation outside of that. Okay, so the VLAN management on those cheap switches is always on VLAN 1. Fair. Probably don't have any way to switch that. And I found the same thing. The inexpensive switches, they work with fiber. They work with DAC. They don't care. They just work. I'm happy with that. The unmanaged version is the same as different firmware. So the unmanaged and managed version are the same except for the different firmware. That's interesting. Backing up to the Corsair, do I have multiple that you save at different places? Yes. I've talked about that before. One's next to me, one is far away from me. I don't know. Where's it at? I got it out of the drawer last time and now I lost it. I blame live people asking me to pull things out or me pulling things out on live streams. Huh, where'd it go? You know, it's not, it's somewhere. Well, I don't know where it is. It's in one, it's in my junk drawer. Yeah, I just keep one in a safe and one, oh, there. Nope, that's not it. There, it rolled over here. These things, the little Corsair survivors, they work. I just back up the important things, backups of passwords, backups of keys. And I don't know. I think there's like 2 gigs. This is 128 gigs and it's got like, I don't know, 2 gigs of data on it. Maybe 4 gigs. It's not much. Do you have any good tutorials of Pop! OS as your first distro? You know, I've been such a long time Linux user and I'm not really, I don't know if it fits my channel for me to do like how to get started with a distro videos. I think that's probably better suited because he has videos on this topic. Jay from Learn Linux TV, he's probably better at it. So what's your take on smart switch versus managed switch for the home network? I mean, do you need, and there's different ways you can set this up. Like if you just want a flat network, unmanaged switch works great. If you go, hey, I'd like to segment my network, well, you got 2 options. You can start buying multiple cheap switches or start going managed. And if you're doing it for security, I don't know that I'd recommend the really cheap ones. One, I don't trust their security. 2, if you're not familiar with setting them up, they're probably going to be harder for you to set up. UniFi is one of the reasons I like UniFi so much is they just make it easy for people who are getting started. And it depends on where your discipline is. If you're trying to learn network engineering, by all means, get a more complicated switch and learn Cisco, learn how to do an HP switch or a ProCurve or grab whatever you can. Or is ProCurve still around? Whatever the HP's calling them these days. You know, that's a good learning opportunity. MikroTik, good learning environment for things. But people get upset when they try to build it out and they go, I was going to set up VLANs and it got hard. So just decide how much time you want to put into that, setting it up. All depends on what you're doing. What's the biggest network you built with pfSense? I know we have One of the clients, as far as I know, is still running PF They have their own internal IT. I think it's like 4,000 users on it. That's like the one I directly worked on. I've had clients tell me they have really big ones that I don't always ask them the user count. We sometimes get like these consulting jobs. The user count is not always like, that's not my question usually. It's more, and I had a weird one today. I was doing a consulting call today, and the person should have led with how they were configuring it, because they had me really confused, because they have multiple PF senses on the same network and we're having trouble with the static routes between them. But that isn't how they started the conversation. They started the conversation with problems with OpenVPN. I couldn't figure out why OpenVPN couldn't talk to the network, but then I started staring at the IP addresses and go, how many PF senses do you have? And, oh, why is there, you have static routes between these. So yeah, sometimes the that network is pretty big. That particular client has, I don't know exactly how many users are on that one, but based on how many servers they have, probably quite a few users. So all the HP stuff's called Aruba now. Okay. It's all, I didn't know if it was all just in the Aruba brand. Yeah. When it comes to setting up the PF senses, any of the tasks that we have doesn't start with, well, I've got 1 million users. It always starts with, I need this routing, this firewall configuration, this VPN setup, this static route added, this type of failover, this type of whatever. These are the rule problems I'm having. It's not like they start with users. Users are a completely separate problem. It's not that users aren't a problem. They're just a different problem than what we're experiencing here. Yeah, Aruba's got all their instant on now. I haven't tested those in a while. Or they've been bugging me to do more things. They reached out a couple times and I looked at their site and I said, you haven't done any, I'm not going to do a video. You haven't done anything new since I did a video like 4 years ago. It looks the same. It's the same kind of basic interface with things. I will answer this question. Whatever my wife buys, the hair product I choose is whatever my wife buys. It's always, it has to be the first bottle in the shower I grab, because I'll always grab the first bottle and my wife knows to put that one there. She has like other hair product that I'm not supposed to use, but the first bottle in the shower, there's like a few of them. Like that's the one I'm supposed to use. There. It's So they've released some new access points, and that's where they were reaching out to me, want me to talk about their new access points. And I was like, cool, but not interested. I, they just aren't that interesting to me. So I wasn't really, really wasn't my thing. Have you seen anyone do PF Sense and OpenWRT and OpenWisp for large installations? PF Sense, yes. OpenWisp and OpenWRT, we don't really consult on those, and I haven't really had anyone ask me about consulting on them. So I don't know how well the OpenWRT and OpenWisp stuff scales. I don't have any insight into it. We also don't do any specialized consulting in the WISP market either. Siricata on my PSNs keeps switching off my WAN connection every couple days. If I switch Siricata, it works great. My recommendation first is not to run Siricata on WAN. Second, look at the logs. The var log Siricata / name of the interface, and then you'll find the logs for that particular device to tell you why it's doing that. I debate about this a lot, and I'm not trying to be ever rude. I'm always very polite in my forums with people. But the challenge I constantly run into in my forums is people who don't really ask questions. They just tell me it's not working. And, I'm always asking a little bit more questions, and I'm not trying to call this person out, but I will at least show, because, I'm polite. I'm not saying RTFM. Like they said, their certificates, this is, an active forum question. Their certificates aren't showing under CA. I commented that if you're using Acme, they would be under the name Acme Cert, et cetera, et cetera. And he said they're not. The problem is I don't see in here. So they're I asked them the question, and this is what they should start with. Like, what does it say under the renewal? A lot of people just never post logs. It's like the first question I ask constantly in my forums whenever people post. And by the way, people may let me point this out real quick here. Let me pull up me. When you look at me in the forums, I am in the forums constantly replying to everybody. I post a absolute ton in my own forums. I always tell people, and I'm not joking, that's the best way to reach me because I spend time in there. And I am constantly replying to people, but a big number of my posts are just like, where's the logs? And I don't get a lot of replies to it. And the reason why, the moment they look in the log, they find the answer. They're like, oh, out of memory or whatever that message is. And they just, before they even paste it into my forums, they Google it and go, oh, that's where the error is. So yeah, definitely always spend time in the logs. But I've debated about like, do I do a video that I send to people like, this is how you do a forum post, whatever the problem is. I'm going to ask for logs. I'm going to ask for what the conditions are that led up to this, because too many people say it doesn't work. And I don't know why it doesn't work. And I'm like, but okay, but what efforts have you put into it? That's the really important part on there. I'm laughing. Shirt idea that Matt just sent me. He's listening to my live stream. RTFL, read the freaking logs. Let's see, catching up here. pfSense and Graylog. Yeah, I have pfSense piped into Graylog. Works great. I've even got the extractors. They're on my GitHub. Maybe I should do an updated video on LNAV, because that is one of the ways to. Boy, hold on. I got way too many things open. Let me exit all these. There are so many IP addresses on that device. What is all this? There we go. I've done a video on this before, so if anyone's interested, maybe I'll do an updated one. I just think this is a super cool tool. It's called LNAV, and it makes parsing logs easier. And yeah, I'd recommend it if anyone's looking for a way to be able to look at logs, sort them, filter them, and you can get specific with it. So you can type LNAV var log. Got to spell log right. Maybe you want to look at one specific log, like the auth log. It makes it easy to do this, parse through things, find conditions, meet conditions based on that filter. There's lots of little things you can do with it that make it a little bit better than just trying to view them. It's apt-get install LNAV, LNAV. Not much in that one, but you get the idea. All right, there's syslog. What's in syslog? Oops. Look at all the log details, but you can tell it to only find errors, only to find certain things you're looking for. This is how you figure out what's going on with your system, especially in the Linux world. I'm always asking those questions. What's in the logs? I'm planning to build a pfSense for home, and the newer fanless firewall boxes seem like a great option, but I heard bad things about the reliability. I'm better off building my own hardware. The reliability is hit and miss. I've talked about it before. I've talked about the failures with them. It's hit and miss. That's the downside. There's not a good answer for it. Um, I've had a few of them where one port just died on them, but there's more ports. So if you didn't need all the ports, you just, you know, mark that port as dead and doesn't exist anymore and move on to the other ports that do. So building your own hardware, yeah, you can find used computer stuff that's going to be relatively inexpensive. That would probably work just as well. What do you think about cloud firewalls? I see a lot of product claim that you really don't need on-site firewalls. Well, you do need on-site firewalls, so I'm not exactly sure of the question there. I'd have to look at that on a product by product basis. I don't trust marketing people. They're always just trying to sell me things. And they always have like poorly labeled cloud firewall boxes, but they're still boxes. Yeah. So have you looked at the logs to see, have you power cycled it? Yep. Thanks for the content. Much appreciated. Let's see. During the CrowdStrike outage, you deliver info concisely in a short video compared to many others. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I tried to make my CrowdStrike video brief. Covered the details, moved on. I started going to ChatGPT and posting logs. I tell it what I'm looking to do, and it's been incredible. Yes, that is a good feature of ChatGPT, is being able to put log information in there, and absolutely, it's actually decent at finding things. We have quite a few 4200s in production. They work. The 4200s work great. No complaints about them at all. Yes, I am working on a new video to cover the new Netgate 8300, which I have right here. So this, I'll zoom in. This is a Netgate 8300 I have that I am doing testing on. Apt-get install LNAV. I think we just ordered some more 8300s, so I think we have some clients running them. I'll have to look. I think we ordered some. I seen a note in a project, one of our projects, talk about them. I don't know for certain if those are ordered yet. Hey, awesome! Thank you very much for the donation. It is greatly appreciated. Happy to keep making all these vids. The last thing I'm going to talk about here before I move on to Discord, which, by the way, I've had the Discord pulled up here for a while. For anyone that wants to join the Discord, I've been doing a second follow-up live stream over in Discord. Not a long one, a little bit short one, but hey, just why not? Come in there, chat with people, let people know that I'm in there. But I want to present something else here. Present. You can use apt or apt-get. They're trying to move to apt, but apt-get still works, and muscle memory has me typing apt-get. This is the Alta firewall, so I'm still working on kind of an updated review. I've been testing out their products for on and off. I have a few different ones in here, but I like their interface. They've been improving it little by little, and I did talk to them about this. I think this should look a little better, but overall it's functional and gets the job done. So I will say that's the part I care about first. Is you can always update a UI. How does the device work? How does the device hold up over time? And they've done a good job with that aspect of it. Like, over time, the devices continue to work. Those are your first goals as a new product company: is, does your crap work? And yes, it does. Is it easy to manage? Yes, it is. The settings are really, click here. Now, it may not seem intuitive to click here. If you click here, it does that. And if you click here, it just gives me connection information. gives me CPU load. I mean, they've made a nice modern UI for it, but this not bad. I like the little power cycle button, the little mouse overs for things. I did suggest that they start including in the mouse overs this, so I know what's plugged into each one of the ports. But yeah, I think the Alta stuff, for anyone wondering, is coming along nice. And I have their self-hosted controller. I'm going to be talking about that part soon. So there's yeah, it's neat. Yeah, apt is the doer. Apt is what they want you to use. They want you to use it. Don't give in. My muscle memory won't let me. Apt-get. I've been typing apt-get now for so many years. I don't know how not to type it anymore. I'll be running as a redundant route for one of the networks. But what make you angry was their misinformation. They said 16 or 24 port PoE, but half of the ports are PoE. Yes. That's true. I didn't look at their marketing, to be honest with you, to see if there's a difference, but I do know you are factually correct that not all of the ports are PoE. So good to know. Good to know. They're I will say that let me pull up the Alta Labs website. Their site is alta.inc, for anyone wondering. My brain is in too many places, so I gotta, all right, get it back in the right place. There we go. But yeah, products. I don't like pop-ups. Whatever. Switches. 16 of which support PoE plus. So yeah, this first 16 are PoE plus. These ones are not PoE, which caused me some confusion. I was actually setting it up, and I realized I couldn't figure out why something wasn't coming on, and it was because I didn't realize that wasn't PoE. So there's that. That's the thing that happened. But yeah, it seems pretty simple. And I'll agree with this. Yeah, they need to fine-tune their marketing. I think they're probably a reasonable alternative. And if you compared to Omada, I don't trust Omada at all. And Cisco finding all those security flaws in them, yeah, I don't trust the security on any of the Omada stuff at all. Yeah, it is kind of a crowded space, and I think the one to beat isn't Cisco or Aruba. It's the fact that UniFi is really making some inroads in there. I would actually, and I know how. So let's step back a little bit. I did a video with Cisco. Cisco sent me some stuff. I played around with the Cisco small business stuff. The Cisco people were like, this is the UniFi killer. So the fact that Cisco actually thinks that, knows that UniFi's knocking on their door going, hey, here we are. And hey, we're a player in this space that's pretty scaled up there. I mean, they're not at Cisco scale, of course, but UniFi is a large scale player. I mean, when you start looking at it, I mean, what is UniFi? Ubiquity. What are they at now? Yeah, they're back up there. So they're currently at 10.7 billion is their market cap. So you can't just say that UniFi is a fly-by-night little company. They're a company now that makes tangible products that are, in the 10 billion market cap range. That means they're past the normal 1 billion as a unicorn company. They're in the 10 billion range. That's a good evaluation on there. Companies like TP-Link and Omada, they're basically copycats. They copy something, they make it 10%, 20%, whatever percentage they think they can get cheaper. They certainly don't try to make it better. But Cisco's actually gone through the trouble of lowering the price on some of the Meraki stuff. I didn't realize CNWR sells on a Meraki, and I didn't realize since the last time I looked at Meraki, which was prior to the merger with CNWR, I didn't realize that Meraki prices have actually gone down substantially in licensing fees. And I absolutely believe that this is a direct result of them dealing with UniFi on the market. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a really tough uphill battle for the people at Alta because they don't have a complete ecosystem yet. They also don't have enough. They're not like this. They're not like half the price. You have to figure out the switching cost of switching your switching. So you want to keep an environment that that you can support, that has all the features. You get familiar with the environment you support. We have techs that are familiar with Cisco. We have techs that are familiar with Aruba. We have plenty of techs that are familiar with UniFi. You throw one more in the mix, and what's the value it adds? Is there a value it adds to the market? So it's like, all right, why would I use them? And that's where they're at right now. Like, I'm testing them out and giving them a fair shake, but I'm not throwing these in production environments. I don't really want to throw the risk. Why would I want to throw one more place for my technicians to have another dashboard to look at? They have enough dashboards. We can just throw in Merakis and throw in UniFis. There's two places those live. They're easy to deal with. The Cisco, a lot of it's not, if we have Cisco, a lot of times you're logging in manually. And so that's just, different management interface. But in terms like your cloud managed, Meraki and UniFi are mostly what the small businesses end up going with, for good reason, because they're reliable. They're easy to find. I can get replacement parts for them in terms of I can have one right away. Matter of fact, we stock a lot of them. So if we have a client we've had clients that had a failure, and I'm like, oh, cool, we got one in stock, so let's just go swap it out. We had a lightning strike at a client that wrecked a lot of stuff, and having their backup config and just being able to push the config right back to the UniFi and swap it out with the same model, no problem. Also, FYI, Alta is working with AT&T for microcell stuff. Not sure how well they're doing, but what you were informed by the people. That's interesting. At a certain point, there's not too much more bells and whistles, and you end up being a Microsoft selling a new UX to people. Yeah, it does come down to, what is that bell and whistle, and you're just selling one more thing on there. Do I need it? Is it a bell? This is one of those things when people do product feature comparisons. I try to be very aware of this. They're like, well, it doesn't have this, this, and this. I'm like, but do you need or will you use those extra features? There are certainly extra features on some of the more high-end switches, but do you need them for the use case? When you look at, we have a client, we're putting some Arista switches in there. I seen someone mention Arista. And yeah, we got an Arista partner program because that's a requirement for the client. I don't really think the client needed the Arista switches, but they wanted them because it's what they have in their environment. But they're going to not do much with these. This is not even going to have any inter VLAN routing. This is just a switch. It's a 100 gig switch, so it has to be reliable. It's going to be plugged in some expensive equipment. So these are some expensive 100 gig switches, but they're not going to use all the fancy features that you could possibly be doing with them. Like, I haven't used it, but someone mentioned Arista Cloud Vision. I'm not going to be using that. And I see Matt Lee saying scalable and supportable. Yes, those are important factors in there. It's also a big risk in no fault of Alta's, but the way the market works. How many startups fail? Big question. A lot of them. You can just Google some stats. Startups, especially in the hardware space, are hard to go over long term. It takes way more capital to start a hardware company. So now, knowing that risk, do you bet on it? Because what if the company goes out of business, especially if you've tied it to their cloud portal? If a company goes out of business, the cloud portal goes with it. Now you're like, okay, now what? I'm suddenly, these have no local management interface. So now I'm dark on all these. What do I do? They're in the last known good state, I hope. Or what if when they go out, they also send a command to shut them off, and now you're scrambling, and it's a big mess. I don't hardly see Ruckus at all anymore. And I think part of it's because when you try to look at Ruckus, let's just look them up. This is something I haven't looked in a while. Ruckus Wi-Fi, Ruckus Wireless. Their website was a mess trying to figure out their product line. Okay, they cleaned their website up since I last looked. But sometimes that's a problem when you have a website and a confusing reseller program. At least they got some comparisons. Find a partner, how to buy. Education. I must fill out a form. Let's get some details so we can connect you with a partner. Okay. This is too much work. I already don't like it. So let's find if we can just say wireless access points. Come back over here. Ruckus indoor access point. All right. Here's someone selling them. Wow, $2,000. Log in for best price. I don't know how their licensing works either, but that's a lot for a indoor. So let's look in Reddit. Once again, a big discussion trying to figure it out. I'm not going to spend time on it. You can see this is why not Ruckus. They have the Ruckus Cloud, but how much is the Ruckus? How much is the licensing fees for it? Yeah, if you have a huge portfolio, you're going to have a pain with all your engineers. It becomes an entire challenge of supporting all those different ones. Well, and part of the thing is, once you become a reseller for a product, frequently, very frequently. Matter of fact, I had a friend. I remember he quit working for the company. He hated the product choices they had, but he said the problem is they were so locked into their product choices because they made so much commission off them being resellers for certain products. They would only exclusively use those products, even if they sucked, because the suck was like, well, they suck, but we get a lot of market development funds from them. We get a lot of commission off all the license reselling. So the company doesn't want to switch. The technicians are like, yeah, but the product doesn't do well, or the support sucks. But everyone at the top's going, but the commissions. And as long as it works good enough to make most of your clients happy, people will stay with them. Yeah, it'd be explaining all to the customer. Yes. So Chris has bounced around a little bit. For people that are curious, let's see. So he's got a personal website. I'm a networking and security professional, recognized my contribution across the industry. So yes, long time. He was an engineer at Ubiquity, co-founder of PF Sense. He's no longer involved in the project, and Monowall before that. So yes. So his career spans over 20 years of firewall. So yeah, here we go. I didn't have that shared. So yeah, he's currently at Alta Labs. There's a lot of challenge in creating a new firewall. There's no doubt about that. It is a absolute ton of work. I got at a place that had Cameo installed and the price was half the cost of the initial install. Owner wasn't happy. You used Ruckus for some campus Wi-Fi and it didn't go well. It's like Meraki, the licensing. It's like the Meraki licensing of Ruckus. Yeah, there's the license fees on these. It sucks because I get it. You have to have some type of flow of money to keep the developers developing. Completely understand that. And open source is great, but there's also a challenge in a lot of open source projects of that, where there's not enough money to maintain these highly complex projects. It becomes a real challenge. So figuring out where that happy middle is not easy. Now, UniFi is not an open source company. They make money by selling product, not service, which is kind of challenging for them. It's amazing they're worth as much as they are doing that, because that's not easy. From an investor standpoint, you're like, okay, what is the total addressable market? Because you have at some point reached all the people that need a Wi-Fi access point, and they're not going to buy a new one just yet, especially because enterprise clients make up probably a massive part of their sales. So figuring that out and not having recurring is tough. And UniFi has been an amazing company that's pulled it off. I'm super impressed with them. But that being said, it's a lot harder to pull it off in that manner. So I understand the need for licensing fees. The problem is what these companies constantly do, as Cory Doctorow talks about, is the whole enshittification cycle. They're so determined to do such a large grab of the market that then they later will jack up the price. And VMware was within reason, reasonably priced for a long time. Broadcom bought them, cranked the price up, and they just didn't realize they didn't have the market they thought. And Broadcom has now been, not doing as well with the acquisition. It's actually caused a big boom in the market for people wanting to switch from them because they didn't think it was sticky. But this is exactly the point. If you had someone, and let's say you have let's say someone with a business plan that's actually an enshittification plan, they would go, hey, I'm going to produce something that has $1 a month licensing on it, or $2, something really cheap. And the moment they capture the whole market, they raise the price substantially. And then people go, oh, I don't really want to switch out all my stuff. I guess I got to pay the ransom of them owning it. So yeah, I don't mind at all selling enhanced support. No problem with that. Matter of fact, I think that's something where a lot of companies should charge. I don't really use the enhanced support because I am enhanced support, but not everyone, I make my money off selling support. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like, I get it. If Ubiquiti wants people to contact them directly, that's fine. They know a lot about their own product. That's a great way to have money. A lot of open source projects do this as well. They charge for support. Awesome. Here's the product. Oh, you want to actually have some customization to it. You want to know how it works. You want to be able to call someone when there's a problem. Welcome to Red Hat. That's what they do. Someone used Hyper-V to install pfSense and put them in behind a firewall. He was using Wi-Fi at home to connect, and just connect works. I mean, you can use pfSense and Hyper-V. It works. I don't do it. I don't use Hyper-V though. Just Broadcom doing Broadcom things. Yes. Yeah, Hoodoo is doing that right now. Hoodoo is offering a really cheap price for IT hosted documentation software. What will the price be? I don't know. When you have a market that has like two competitors in it, I thought about doing this. I was interested in writing a fully open source documentation management platform. Then I realized, one, just figuring out how to fund that, not easy. I need a few $100,000 to do it right. I don't have a few $100,000 that I can throw at something to give it away. I mean, could I do a Kickstarter? I don't know. Maybe. That's such a maybe thing to get people to commit to, that a documentation platform. So and if I was the one writing it, to be different. I'm not a good coder. I would not task myself with coding it. I would hire people to do it. I've talked to a few people. The problem is they have to make a living, so they can't just code it in their free time and make a good product. So I've kind of like parked that idea of building that, but yeah, um, it's not something that's really tenable right now. So for now, there's essentially two popular documentation platforms in the IT MSP space. We're using Hoodoo right now as well. It's nothing amazing, but yeah. Yeah, Broadcom's just trash. Um, ZTNA is my favorite, zero trust network architecture, my favorite marketing term. I always ask people what they mean by ZTNA. What are you trying to accomplish first before we start slapping marketing names on it? It's good on sales, but it's not. I don't like marketing buzzwords, so I don't stick them on my product page. We'll offer you zero trust networking. What does that mean? It means you'll zero trust your network. Okay, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Are you going to focus on an identity solution? Are you going to authenticate everything off identity and centralize it? Okay, that's one way to look at it. The definition, I mean, there's a NIST definition for zero trust. I've pulled this up before, but it's pretty vague in terms of you can't trust someone based on where they are in the network. Fair enough. So I'm going to build you a solution that doesn't rely on trusting you based on your position in the network. What does that really mean though? Like, that's not a tangible, that's not a a stake in the ground for what the function will be or what your network will look like. Generally, when people refer to zero trust, they're talking about like, all right, I'm going to say we're going to be very identity centric, which is where things are going anyways. Who cares that the laptop's here or the laptop's at a coffee shop? The laptop, where it's at on a network and whether or not it has a VPN isn't what matters. What matters is, hey, cool, this laptop has this person's SSO tied to this and everything else is tied to it. So they single sign on to their, usually going to be Microsoft. I know there's other providers, Okta and them out there, but sign into their SSO provider and then all authentication, all things tied to that. Therefore, we don't have as, much of an issue on there. I don't know which one takes less resource. I guess it depends on what you're doing, whether XCPNG or Proxmox takes less resources. I don't know. I don't use AppGate, but I've heard of it. There's a few companies out there that offer that where you can tie all of your applications to it. Yeah, TNO, trust no one security. Your self-hosted multi-site UniFi controller videos are for bare metal server setup. I believe you mentioned you host your controller VM, pros and cons. They're for loading them in a VM. I never said bare metal, but bare metal, you could do them on bare metal. All of my videos on it were in a VM. If you wanted to move it to bare metal, I don't see a problem with that. VMs are just easier to manage. So I think everyone does things. Most people are doing things in VMs for that level of environment, but you could run it on bare metal. Bare metal is just more, I don't know. I like the VMs because if there's a hardware problem and I have a backup of the virtual machine, I can restore it. Or if you have an HA cluster, it will fire up on the next system and be happy. I've not used GrandStream. Look up Willie Howe. Willie Howe seems to like it. I've not used it, so I don't have an opinion on GrandStream. He seems to like it because he does videos on it. Well, this is misleading though. Proxmox, as their management tools are built in, and XCPG needs to run a VM. That is correct until you have a cluster of systems. Only one instance of the VM management needs to run. So it's a scaling thing. So if you're building a single server, Proxmox would be less resources because you don't have to run a VM. If I had a cluster of 60 servers, I only need one single instance of XO to run all 60 servers. So now you have you start dividing that out. Now you have less resources used. So that's why it kind of depends. It's not a binary answer. So if you have one server, yes, but if it's not, if it's scaled out, and we actually have some customers that have a very large installs. Matter of fact, I just got some word back from a school district we did some consulting with. I didn't hear back from for a while. Like, I explained everything they needed to do, and they bought some consulting time, and they actually went and did it. That's the part I don't always get. I don't always know what happened in the end. And I was happy. The consulting I did almost a year ago now, they've rolled it all out. It's implemented and gone really well for them. So we've seen some pretty large installs. This is a big city school district that moved all over to XCP-ng off of VMware. And they like it. They have one instance of XO. They actually have, if I understand, provided they set the architecture up like the way they were going to. I just was emailing back and forth with them. They just thanked me for everything working well. But if you set it up right, you can have even multiple pools. So you can have like 20 servers over here, 20 servers over here. One of my clients has multiple data centers, and he used one instance of XO to manage all their data center instances. Lots of options on there. ZTNA meets AI. Oh, yes, we need an AI ZTNA solution. There we go. TrueNAS or Windows Server for storage? Oh, definitely TrueNAS. I would not trust anything. Windows storage server. Yeah. I'm not a big Windows storage server person. Neither is Wendell from Level 1 Text. Wendell from Level 1 Text gave a fun rant on that exact topic. So yes, that's a thing. Anyways, I'm going to bounce over to the Discord because I got a few things I want to get done. And the next thing I want to do is swing over to the Discord that's been sitting here, pulled up, Lawrence.video/Discord. And I will do a little bit of a live stream in there. I don't know what else I'll talk about, but this will be a continuation of this one. Do people still use desk phones anymore? I'm a software engineer and I use some kind of video conferencing. This came up the other day. I will answer this question last. Me and Matt Fox were talking, and we were talking about phone calls that I don't get them. My wife, actually, something happened. The last update to my phone makes my it'll pause my podcast with my headset, but when I hit play, it not all the time, but many times it wants to redial. And it redials the last number. I accidentally called my wife while I was riding my bicycle, and she's kind of laughing. She goes, "What do you mean I was the last person you called? You haven't called me in like 2 weeks," because we work together at home. And I was like, "That's the last time I made a phone call." So when I started looking through it, I'm now down to maybe one phone call a week. So yeah, this was a little bit of an unusual week because I had a friend I hadn't talked to in years call, but man, yeah, I don't use this anymore. And I don't have a phone extension at CNWR. I didn't set one up when I merged the company, and we merged the company in July of 2023. Here we are in August of 2024. I still don't have a phone extension, but nobody noticed. Well, I remember one call had to get forwarded to myself. I think one in a year and a month. So 13 months. Like, I mean, I'm on conferences all the time. I use Google Meet on the daily. I use Zoom because a lot of people send me Zoom invites. So I at least have 3 Zoom calls, I would say, every week, if not more. And Google Meet definitely a lot more. But phones? No, there's no extension. I love who uses phones? I'm shocked at how many companies still are using phones. So nonetheless, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to head over to the in about 5 minutes because I need to grab myself a glass of water. And then I will be over in the follow-up to the Vlog Thursday with Vlog Thursday 397 follow-up. Actually, I got to fire up Discord over here. You have no phones in your whole company. I don't know why people have their phones. Like, they're just not in use anymore, man. Who wants these things? They're just a pain. Go, computer, go. There it goes. Do you need a glass of water? Merch. Yeah, that too. All right, cool. Continued. All right, now I can set it up. All right, I'm going to end this here. Thank you all for joining and watching me ramble on and answer questions. So absolutely, I will be back shortly over in the Discord. See you later. Actually, you know what I'll do? It is launch.video/Discord for anyone that wants to join. Boom. I assumed I typed that right. All right. Thanks, everyone.